It's always great when a video game brings something we've never seen before to the table, or adds a creative flourish on tried and tested narrative or mechanical staples that other games have featured. However, things don't always pan out, of course, and there have been quite a few great ideas that have faded away into the ether over the years. From a very unique take on bounty hunting to cool takes on espionage, several excellent ideas have been buried by their studios, with a variety of factors coming into play that didn't let them see the light of day. We're taking a look at a few that we would have loved to play, but sadly never got the chance to. Let's dive right in. Number 1, Crackdown 3. While its Wrecking Zone multiplayer mode drew heavily on Microsoft's bold idea to bring cloud computing to the Xbox One, Crackdown 3 didn't really catch on the way it should have, despite being a lot of fun. The final product was sadly nowhere close to the high bar that was set for it, with the result being a very destructible city that was largely devoid of the players it was meant to host. The dream of entire city blocks collapsing in front of you with your console handling core tasks and the cloud rendering all of the destruction just didn't materialize, and the game suffered for it as a result. Number 2, Project Milo. This was a tricky one for a long time, with a lot of back and forth about whether it was actually intended to be made into a game taking place between its creators and Microsoft. Still, it would have been cool to see a game with AI actively responding to you and acting on your voice commands. This was a relationship sim that could have been quite innovative for its time, but it simply faded away into the background amid all of the noise surrounding its so-called release. Number 3, Star Wars 1313. We'd be lying if we said that this one didn't sting a little bit. For starters, it was supposed to have Boba Fett as its frontman, with a fast-paced gameplay loop that relied on gadgets and more traditional weapons in lieu of lightsabers and the Force. As if that wasn't enough, it was purported to emulate Star Wars Bounty Hunter, while bringing a gritty, darker tone to its story. Sadly, LucasArts never got to make this one a reality, and we never got to explore District 1313 and see what the underbelly of Coruscant had to offer. Number 4, Silent Hills/PT. A Silent Hill title that was going to feature a collaboration between Hideo Kojima and filmmaker Guillermo del Toro, whose horror credentials are quite well known. With Norman Reedus playing its protagonist sounds kinda like a dream, right? Well, that's sadly all it was to most of the gaming world, with Konami pulling its playable demo from the PlayStation Store shortly after its cancellation. Now, all we can do is look back fondly at the supernatural time loop being brought to the table, and of course, shudder at the thought of Lisa constantly lurking out of sight, just waiting to jump out at us. A playable teaser was all this one was ever going to be in the aftermath of Kojima's exit from Konami. Number 5, Prey 2. Aside from the obvious draw of an amnesiac protagonist affected by the presence of the sphere from the first game, the chance to be a bounty hunter on an alien planet while uncovering the truth about his abduction sounded too good to be true. That was probably a valid insight when we look back at this one, with the game's plans to make you embody a bounty hunter never coming to fruition. We would have loved the chance to make use of all of the agency this one gave us, as we took on the role it wanted us to have, but all we can really do now is smile somberly at what could have been. Number 6, Scalebound. An action RPG that gave fans of the Aragon novels a lot to be excited for. This one might have been a legendary title had it actually made its way to its audiences. Getting to command a literal dragon in the heat of battle, and even directly take control of it to unleash its fearsome abilities, is an idea that we're yet to see even in the current generation of games. And that's without even considering the co-op potential that the concept could bring to the table. Its eventual cancellation after nearly years of development is a showcase of how even the best of ideas may not translate to commercially viable titles in the long run. Number 7, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Patriots. Although this one did make way for Rainbow Six Siege, the thought of being part of a unit led by a morally gray former Navy SEAL against a terrorist group that was willing to impose its own beliefs on New York's residents had all the makings of a Tom Clancy story that was true to the author's vision and its tone. However, the decision to cancel the title and scrap this unique concept is a choice that we continue to question to this very day. Number 8, The Lord of the Rings: The White Council. An open-world RPG where you would work under the guidance of the White Council, with its story and themes drawing from both the films and books, sounds like a Lord of the Rings adventure that might have put even Frodo and Sam to shame. But it seems that the idea was cast into the fires of Mount Doom, and while we do have Shadow of War to help us cope, we can't help but wish for a Palantir to view what it might have turned out to be its version of Middle-earth was allowed to take shape. Number 9, Agent. Set in the Cold War and rumored to place its players at the heart of all the espionage, political assassinations, and counterintelligence that the era brought along, Agent was a great idea. Even Sony seemed to think so, locking down its IP with the belief that it could set the bar for the industry, as per Michael Shorrock, who headed SCEA's third-party relations at the time. A stealth action game with Rockstar at the helm certainly fits that description. But, like the agents it aimed to bring to life, this one quietly vanished, presumably sacrificed in order to focus more resources on the development of GTA 5. Number 10. Project Titan. The World of Warcraft killer that spent 7 years in development continues to have us wondering whether it might have been able to live up to its lofty ambitions. Despite the best of Blizzard coming together to being this sci-fi MMO to life, complete with cool mech suits and rumored superhero-esque powers for its characters, along with a unique twist where you play as a normal citizen of the world by day while battling it out at night, Project Titan was unable to get off the ground. This is a cancellation that still rankles, if we're being honest here. Number 11. The Last of Us Online. Among the many projects that were cancelled in the aftermath of Sony's ill-fated live service push, this one was the most disappointing to us. The concept definitely had its merits, with a massive world filled with the infected being the perfect stage for a survival horror gameplay loop, complete with a standalone story to keep things interesting. Unfortunately for it, the concept was scrapped after concerns about its long-term viability beginning to rear their head. For our part, we would have loved this one for hours on end if it had made its way into our hands. Number 12. Duke Nukem Forever. While Duke was a hero who was quite clear about where he stood on alien invasions, the creative team behind this one could have emulated his conviction. That wasn't the case though, and this title switched engines during its development so many times that it's honestly hard to think about the game it was meant to be versus the one we actually got. Its vision was ultimately diluted by a needless focus on technical relevance, and as one of the record holders for being the longest game in development, we can't help but feel that this was a game that deserved to be greater than the sloppy experience it ultimately devolved into. Number 13. Final Fantasy Versus 13. The darker, more gothic take on the franchise was quite appealing when it first came to light, and Prince Noctis was quite an intriguing character, but with Final Fantasy XIII and eventually Final Fantasy XIV constantly dividing the attention of its team and engine issues caused by the PS3's aging tech, this one was pulled back and repurposed into Final Fantasy XV. When the trailer for the game eventually came around, it felt like it had changed almost completely, ditching its darker tone for something better aligned with the franchise's overall lighthearted trappings. It would then be a solid 5 years before 15 came out, and Versus 13 quietly vanished from the hearts and minds of its potential players. Number 14. The Getaway 3. We were quite fond of the original Getaway's unique way of presenting its world, with the sort of cinematic quality that comes along quite rarely. With its parallel storylines and lack of a heads-up display and other elements, it was quite immersive and also fun to play as a Sony-backed sandbox. The sequel carried on those traditions, and we were delighted to know that a third title was in the works. But The Getaway 3 was lost to the annals of time, with its cancellation never actually being announced, but quite clearly understood by the gaming world at large. Number 15. Deep Down. A sci-fi fantasy co-op adventure that would have seen its players exploring time-hopping dungeons is something we're still waiting to see. It doesn't help that Deep Down had its gameplay drawing inspirations from Dark Souls, which was already among our favorites to begin with. But its 2013 reveal and the lack of any concrete evidence of its development over the years has essentially made this one unique concept nothing honestly more than vaporware. We're holding out hope that it eventually becomes a great game, but we're not going to hold our breath. Bonus: Wonder Woman. Monolith's proprietary Nemesis system, a unique mechanic that works so darn well in the Shadow franchise, was the perfect way to craft a Wonder Woman story that could really dig into the character's lore, who could defy challenges, then come back stronger. That's probably why the cancellation of this one continues to be an annoyance to us, as the concept is probably not going to make it into any other titles in the near future. And that's a wrap on our picks for great gaming ideas that showed a lot of promise but didn't ultimately make their way to their players. Here's to hoping that we don't have to make another one of these lists over the next few years though. So what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.